Hey there, baby cake. Welcome back. Good to see you. This here's a voiceover remake of one of our earlier text-to-speech videos, so if you hear some stories you've seen before, that would be why. As always, please submit your stories to our subreddit, or if it's on par with the topic presented in this video, feel free to leave your story in the comments below. Now, without further ado, D&D players and DMs, what's your best, okay, I'll allow it, story? Part 1. We were playing a 4-year-long campaign where the Undercity was trying to take over the surface realm. Our rogue, who was leaving the group, strapped on every magic item he had at his disposal, gave the cleric a kiss, and stepped through his portable gateway to the Undercity. He had a few scrolls of haste and a cursed object that would cause all items to explode if exposed to haste. He planned it for months, and turned himself into a huge magic bomb, destroying the whole Undercity. The rogue wasn't the only thing killed. RIP my inbox. This video is made possible today by our dear and darling friends over at Reroll. Now, Reroll is a unique D&D character builder and design app with a really striking and cool 8-bit pixel art style. The app is available for iOS, Android, and your web browser, and contains 5th edition SRD content. New material like pets, gear, races, classes are being added regularly, and you can import other content or create your own easily as well. You can see what it's all about at reroll.co. I sat down with it for a couple hours yesterday and made a few characters that I am either actively playing or have played in the past. Look at this Chadley boy, and this burb, and this spicy number. Anyways, it's really cool to have a sponsor that is so aligned with what we're all about here at the channel. So if you want to check it out and post your creations to our subreddit, well, I may just have to drop on by and have a little look-see for myself. Thanks for hanging in there, and thank you for hopefully checking out this app. Check out the app, it's really pretty. Now, back to the show. A friend of mine convinced our DM to let him play a Minotaur who was raised by gnomes and thought he was a gnome. Not a DM, just witness to god-tier levels of luck. My buddies and I play a Fallout D&D campaign, and we have 2 different campaigns going right now. At the very start of the second one, we woke up in a rundown factory. We encountered a sentry that was not hostile unless we entered a certain room. My buddy decided that he wanted to hack the bot to turn into a companion. Our DM said he needed to roll intelligence, science, and repair. Natural 20s for all 3, and we pretty much broke the campaign, because the sentry bot deals fucking insane damage. We found a ruined palace in the jungle and ended up killing the queen who lived there. She was a Gorgon Medusa, so it was a hard fight, and we were looking forward to looting her place when we won. But since all the valuables were corroded or stolen long ago, there was no treasure to be had. "Over her dead body," I said, and cut her head off to keep as a trophy. Fast forward to when we're running through a ruined city with a giant frog hemoth stomping after us. Well, I was playing Necromancer Cleric, and after getting the DM to allow it, pulled the Gorgon's head out of my pack, held it toward the Titan, and resurrected it with all the unholy power I could muster. It blasted out a ray of petrification like a perfect reenactment of Perseus saving Andromeda, and blistered its flesh to stone through several rounds of sustained casting. The head was deteriorated to useless shreds after channeling so much energy, but the frog hemoth was defeated, and it was such an epic moment. My party was going up against a Medusa who had already petrified our paladin. Our Barbarian had an idea. He covered himself with some old armor that had belonged to the Medusa's long-dead husband. Barbarian barges in booming, "I have possessed this mortal body, my love!" Our DM said she would allow it with a high enough persuasion check. Alas, our Barbarian has cursed dice. My group was adventuring in a crypt and came across some ritual oil. We took it, thinking we may need to create some kind of explosion to clear the way ahead. Our Barbarian, with 18 strength, was the one carrying it. Even put some rope into them to make them like giant Molotov cocktails. We get down a little further into the crypt and find a coffin sealed with a heavy stone top. Barbarian puts the oil down to push the top off and, unsurprisingly, gets jumped by a vampire. Barbarian rolled poorly on initiative, but one of the other team members used their round to ignite the rope. Cue the light bulb for the Barbarian. His turn finally comes around. He grapples the vampire, which is a feat in and of itself, and suplexes him directly into the urn. Lots of fire damage for both of them. The party was in a theater, so they didn't have their weapons. They were looking for someone infected by a heart shard of fear, and they eventually found it. A battle ensued. The Goliath Barbarian said he'll pick up a couch from the set and smash it into the enemy. I've always been a rule of cool DM, so I said fuck it, sure. He rolled high, so I allowed the couch to deal 2d10 damage. It also broke to pieces in the process. The time when the Barbarian smashed a couch into a wraith is still one of the high moments of that campaign. Shadowrun player got himself extra character points by taking the flaw where he had traumatic flashbacks triggered by chocolate eclairs flying through the air. His reasoning was that this would be so unlikely to happen, the flaw was free points. Probably having a bit of fun with it and not seriously power gaming, but he got me as a GM. Pastries. Pastries everywhere. The party was in the dungeons of a castle, and the dungeons were full of wraiths that we needed to kill because they would drop magic skulls needed to complete a puzzle. Something we didn't realize until later. The rogue had a bag of devouring in his possession. He held it open, grabbed one of the wraiths, and forced it into the bag. DM eloquently describes the occurrence as a screeching, followed by a crunching sound coming from the bag. Fast forward to when we actually need these skulls. Party is struggling hard trying to figure out this puzzle. We try everything up to and including smashing the skulls, which the DM says are indestructible. DM finally hints that we are missing a skull. We realize that it was going to be the skull dropped by the wraith that was shoved into the bag. We crack open the D&D manuals and read up on bags of devouring, and the DM reads aloud that any creature that ends its turn inside the bag is devoured, and all traces of it are consumed. We respond with, "But you said the skulls were indestructible." DM pauses a moment and says, "The skull falls out of the bag," and we cheer in triumph. Yay! In a game of Call of Cthulhu, think D&D but Lovecraftian and set in the real world in the 1920s. My players were hunting down a wizard who had switched bodies with a college student and was now going around town killing the descendants of those who originally imprisoned him. The adventure is called The Condemned for any fellow keepers. They had managed to steal a book from the wizard's lair and leave a message to meet them at a nearby airfield to negotiate terms to trade the book for giving the student's body back. The investigators intended to betray him, however, and capture him with the help of the local police department. Little did they know, the wizard was planning a surprise for them. They have a day or so to get ready for the meeting, so one of my players, who was a former Great War fighter pilot, asked if he could call his mechanic to prep up his plane and fly it down to Arkham, the town they were in. The player had rolled pretty well on his credit rating skill, which determines affluence, so I figured it wasn't unreasonable for him to have maybe owned the plane he used in the war or bought it afterwards. He then says, "Oh, and Frank, go ahead and mount up the Browning while you're at it. I got a bad feeling about this meet." That's when the player and the rest of the table gives me the look that says, "Is he gonna go along with it?" I decided that yes, your character does have a machine gun mounted to his plane. I'll even throw in a few crates of ammo to boot. The reason I allowed it was because the wizard had a spell called Summon/Bind Hunting Horror that I really wanted to use on my players, but I felt it was a little too unfair. What followed was a glorious battle that was by far one of my favorite times running the game. A motorcycle chase, a player being swallowed whole while wearing a ring granting immunity to kinetic damage in exchange for her sanity, with the intent of shooting it from the inside. A dogfight between an airplane and basically a dragon, with the cherry on top being the pilot catching the swallowed player on the wing of his plane after banishing the horror back to its plane of existence. What a fucking evening. Later on, they just ended up shooting the wizard in the back with both barrels of a sawed-off shotgun. My friend was DMing a special session for us as a Christmas celebration, D&D 5e. Extra tough, but awesome rewards. Final boss after slaying several frost giants was a winter goddess. She had over 2,000 hit points, which is a heinous amount, but I ended the fight with 2 arrow shots. Through a combination of gear bonuses and special barbarian abilities the DM had made, I was able to make a ranged attack at plus 38 attack. I put an explosive arrow into the goddess's eyeball. She had on a helm and had a tower shield, making it a very small target. I followed the explosive arrow with a flame arrow, made both rolls of 18 and 19 plus all my modifiers. DM rolls to see if it ignites and hangs his head in defeat. It was supposed to be a 2+ hour struggle for survival. I Robin Hooded the shit out of her face and blew up her skull like Gallagher with a mallet. On our first D&D session ever, one of our buddies asked our more experienced DM if he could be 4 detective penguins stacked on top of each other wearing a trench coat, each with differing abilities that you could swap between every turn, depending on the penguin who was on the top. Each one also happened to be named after the penguins of Madagascar. Our DM was more than happy to allow it. My friend wanted to lick the floor for research purposes as a barbarian. The DM said, sure, why the fuck not, roll for insight, and he got a nat 20. Apparently that nat 20 allowed him to notice the 3 monsters that were about 120-ish feet in front of us. By the way, it was in a cave. My players were just starting their adventures, so they were maybe level 2 at most when this happened. They were doing a dungeon I had designed to be revisited many times in the story, and as usual, these idiots unintentionally got into one of the much more dangerous, high-level areas I had planned for months down the road. There's a huge underground lake inside this dungeon, with something nasty and completely optional in its depths. They spend like a week in game on one little shore near the lake, camping and preparing and planning. One of the two fighters had taken mostly crafting skills and ends up building a boat, while the other, much more reckless fighter is climbing cave walls like a lunatic trying to do God knows what. The druid starts filling the boat with any kind of poison and flammables he can get his hands on, and they send it out to the middle of this lake. Sorcerer lights it on fire, and the batshit fighter is at the top of the cave knocking down stalactites. Long story short, these assholes killed a goddamn 6,000 HP kraken with a flaming poisonous boat at level 2. Was DM. Players were playing in a world that was strictly controlled by an inquisitorial-like government. Magic was outlawed. Player insisted on playing a wizard. I warned him that there are strict penalties for magic use. But with a little role-playing, he can convince the people that it's all divine miracles and whatnot. He does well for a while, keeping up the ruse. The big giant battle comes, and it's winding downish. Players are confronting the uprising of the downcast magic using and magical creatures and defend the city. But the party's wizard slips and casts not Holy Bolt, not Divine Judgment, not Miracle Smear, not Miracle Smear, not Miracle Spear, but Magic Missile, killing the leader of the uprising. However, this does not sit well with their paladin. He says, "I attack the evil wizard." Me, "But the wizard is dead." Oh, shit. Paladin. Me. Roll damage, I guess. Edit. So this has inspired some conversation and some horror stories below. It's never okay to be a bully, period, but especially in an escapist hobby like RPGs. Wizard knew he fucked up as soon as he cast the spell. Rest of the party knew he fucked up as soon as he cast the spell. This wasn't a snap decision by the paladin to rafflecopter another player. Context is important, and the paladin is a paladin in a theocratic, anti-magical society. I thought it was great role-playing for him to follow his order at the expense of his newfound friend. The paladin captured the wizard, and he had to stand trial. It led to some really great role-playing, and the wizard may or may not have been the catalyst for the revolution that toppled the theocracy. Hello, brave warriors of cosmic actuality. Thank you for joining me to the very end of today's journey. Massive thanks to our sponsor, Reroll, not just for supporting the video, but for developing a really pretty app that really brings our favorite characters to life. You can find it on the App Store, Google Play, or at reroll.co. Please have a look, enjoy, and bring your favorite character to life, virtually, in 8-bit. Feel free to share your character creations in the subreddit. Maybe we can make a thread for it though, so the front page isn't just spammed with screen caps of all your low-ass batteries driving my anxiety to nuclear fusion levels. To be fair, I'm not judging you. My battery is at 6% as I'm writing this outro. Actually, let me check it. 5%, haha, because I also like to live dangerously. If you're new here, ask how much Rip Daddy loves you in the comments. If you're more of an antiquated vintage, tell him how much Rip Daddy loves you. If you want to say hi to me or Rip Daddy or any of our mods, feel free to connect with us on Discord. I don't know if Brian is super active in there, and to be honest, I can hardly blame him, with the pure chaos that lies beyond the gateway. But come hang out with us all on Reddit at r/Mr. Ripper. As always, that's where we'd love for you to share your stories so that we can make sure we get around to all of them. I think that's all for announcements. Wow, things are really ramping up. At the time of writing this, we're giving sweet little butterfly kisses to the 100,000 subscriber milestone. By the time this video comes out, we may already be there. That's fucking nuts, dude. Seriously, the growth has been nothing short of shocking, and I'm so grateful that you're all here with us tuning in and hanging out every other day. I mean, Rip Daddy just quit his day job to do this full time, all because of you. Rip Daddy will now have more quality time to spend with his family, both virtual and IRL, because of you. I have more time to focus on my music and playing D&D, all because of you. Words cannot express how thankful we are for you all, but hopefully more videos and streams can. I love you so much. Rip Daddy loves you so much. Brian loves you so much. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Please sub for Nat 20s. You deserve them. We'll see you in a couple days.